We have always had a history of and I'm going to say home builders that were buying truly entry-level homes. You don't have that anymore. And without that, you don't have the step up.
Welcome back to Nevada Realtors Today, your place for timely updates on the news and trends that matter to realtors in the Silver State. Now let's join your Nevada Realtors President, Brandon Roberts, and Nevada Realtors CEO, Tiffany Banks, for today's episode of Nevada Realtors Today.
Welcome to episode 4 of the legislative takeover of the Nevada Realtors Today podcast. My ghost host, Chris Bishop, is again MIA.
I am not Chris Bishop.
So that's what the police lineup said too, right?
Right.
So,
That's right.
we're going back to the archives to whip up past state president, past local president, past legislative chair, past you on the freeway, Keith Lynam.
That's right. You don't have to go back that far. So yeah, that's right. I'm not quite that gone yet.
So thank you. I appreciate you.
Amen. Good to be here. It's that time of the session where everybody starts getting a little short fused. So I love this time of the session.
We're a little delirious. So, so yeah, we are exactly, Keith. That's a great point. We are past the bill deadline. So any bill that was going to be introduced into the Assembly or Senate had to be introduced by now. There's a small exception for some emergency measures and a couple others, but 99.5% of any bills that are about to be introduced have been introduced. And I believe the committee deadline is April 11th. So that means that when a bill gets introduced in its individual house, it has to go to a committee in that side. And that if it's not out of committee, voted through the committee by the 11th, that bill is dead, correct?
Yeah.
So what does that mean, Keith?
That's not the one that's decided upon. I always tell everybody, you know when it's really dead? About August. That's when everything is really dead. Yes, you're right. I mean, that's the way it should be. But then there's overrides, there's emergency declarances. We've been stuck in the past where there's been midnight conference calls that have been gutted one bill and inserted another. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But for the most part, yeah, committee bills going to the other side, those are all dead points within the legislative session. So, yeah.
Yeah. To your point, Keith, those late night conference committees, we actually have been on both sides of that, right? We have been the victim of one, and that I can think of in recent memory, and we benefited with one with getting that 30-year listing agreement, eliminated, right? Last session, that was one of the bills that, it's a consumer protection thing where there was a company, and I know I've talked about this before, but the company was paying lower income families, lower income households, hey, we'll give you $2,000 or $3,000, but you have to sign this listing agreement. It's for 30 years. And if you choose to sell your house, we don't care who you sell it with. But if you do, you owe us, a certain percentage, right? They said you have to pay us no matter what. So
it's
predatory.
Good for the goose, good for the gander. I even say the one that we were harmed on, that long term ended up good for us because those legislators understood what they did was not the wisest thing, and we ended up working and having a good relationship.
Yeah, that's a valid point, and that's where that's a power to our lobbying group, power to our legislative committee for having those conversations. We felt like we were taken advantage of, right? In the last moment, literally, I think it was 10:30 at night, the night before session ended. They called a conference committee for 7:30 in the morning. Fortunately, our lobbying team got wind of it, was in that meeting, and was able to at least keep the worst parts of some of the bills out. And then the legislators came to us right after and was like, you know what, we don't want to do this. This is not how we want to work with you guys. So they've become friends since. So
for the most part.
For the most part. So let's touch on a couple of the things that have got through, come to our attention the last couple of weeks. I can tell you AB 540, that is the governor's, I'll call it an omnibus housing package. I heard someone describe it as a supply side solution to a supply side problem. And I think that's a perfect description, right? It's a 48-page bill that talks about a $250 million fund that would be used to help buy down interest rates. It would be used for down payment assistance, but more importantly, it would be a low interest loan program and grant and rebate program for fees and things like that for affordable housing projects, right? So, and actually we're using the term attainable because it's the middle income that we're really targeting, right? It's people up to 150% of AMI, the area median income.
Like it is, yeah.
So it's the missing middle, right? And the theory behind that is, hey, if these folks can get into some other housing in the middle income, then that will free up a lot of the entry level, below the median price housing for folks who are stuck in rentals, who are ready to buy. And then there's even programs, there's rental diversion and rental eviction.
Careful.
Eviction diversion and rental assistance programs as well as part of that fund. So this bill is tackling the housing problem from multiple angles, right? It's not just one solution. Hey, we're going to do one thing and hopefully this is it. They're coming at it from, all 360 degrees. And that's a great bill. So do you have any thoughts or insight into that?
The simplistic version of all this is that we have always had a history of and I'm going to say home builders that were buying truly entry-level homes. It's how I bought my first home. That's how many of us bought our first homes. And they were truly entry-level. You don't have that anymore. You can't point to a new housing development and say that's affordable for the first-time home buyer or the repeat buyer that's just getting back from the foreclosure crisis and all that. And without that, you don't have the step up, which means you buy your house at $200,000, $250,000, and you hang on to it for 4, 5, 6 years, and then you can sell it for 300 and some. So you can afford a $400,000 house. We don't have that middle gap, and we haven't had it in a long time. And that's the simplistic reason of why we're at where we're at. Is you don't have people that are just stepping into their first home and buying a new one at $700,000.
Right.
Just doesn't happen.
Nope.
So you can't get that without that step up with the old way of saving for the down payment, getting your house equity up and selling it and using that equity to get into that next level house.
Yeah.
This helps. This certainly helps. I still think, there needs to be the conversation about all the other stuff that's moving around. But you don't get that in the session. So kudos to the governor. He's been strong on a lot of this stuff. And in fact, last session, really strong. Some things that I was like, whoa, that's great. So I think he'll go down as one of our better governors in this time that we have. So
yeah. I mean, he's really looking at the problems and addressing them or trying to address them directly, right? He's not going to allow politics to play into, at least in the housing side. I can't speak to everything else. I'm not, privy to everything else. I'm not paying attention to all the other bills. But on the housing side, he has been firm on rent control is not a solution. And, and he really wants to make sure that construction and development stays affordable. And that's what we need, right? We need more supply, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about a bill today, AB 376, and that was this kind of program brought forth by a few legislators. It seems like the Division of Insurance might even be involved a little bit, and it's about bringing these. How do I want to word it? Like insurance programs that aren't as thorough or don't meet all the requirements that are generally required in homeowners insurance. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this? So essentially, it's if you bring fire insurance like this, it's not like the California Fair Plan, right? It's not a taxpayer funded thing, but it allows an insurance company to come in and say, hey, we're only going to cover these items, even though statute says we have to cover 10 other things. You said, well, we're going to offer a discounted rate that says we're going to cover A, B, and C, and D through F, you're going to have to go somewhere else.
Yeah, it kind of like piecemealing stuff. And I'll be honest, it makes me nervous. Nobody wants government intervention until something happens and they scream, well, where was the government at? And so there's a reason why there's these standards that people at business of industry and insurance but yet there is a problem. I mean, we have a big problem with insurance where, somebody said that today, something's better than nothing. Usually is until the nothing is what you got covered. And so I'm hopeful. I'm hoping that it works. I'm hoping that we can get some solution. I'm waiting for everybody else to weigh in on this that actually know how these things work. But there is a need for some oversight. There just truly is. And so you can't let the shackles off completely. But there's a problem. So a long way of saying, I don't know the solutions because I really don't understand the problems other than some people are not being able to get the insurance.
Right. And the reason we're getting into these insurance bills is, right, if you have a mortgage, you know that you have to have homeowners insurance on your home, or the lender's going to put their lender or insurance of last resort on your home, which could be very expensive. And a lot of times those companies aren't even willing to offer those to mortgage companies now. So if you don't have insurance, you are potentially, one, obviously you could lose your house in some catastrophe, and that's the worst case scenario. And second is you could get foreclosed on because you don't have insurance. The terms of your mortgage say that you have to have homeowners insurance. You have to protect the bank's investment, and that's a risk. And we don't want homeowners to get foreclosed on because of the cost of insurance right now, right?
If you get their insurance slapped on them, and then the flip side of that is your house burns down, and the fire department shows up, puts the fire out, and then the insurance company denies the claim because it was flooded out. So
we've heard those stories, right?
Did you get all the way through there?
Yeah. I was like, where are you going with this? And I totally get it.
Your house didn't burn down; it was flooded. Yeah.
The fireman used too much water, right?
Too much water. Yeah.
We've heard those cases though. Like you make a joke about it, but in Florida, right? Like there's a hurricane blows through, and there's obviously all this damage to the home, and then because of the hurricane, there's a flood, and the water's raging, and the house gets quote unquote flooded according to the insurance company, and they're like, well, you didn't have flood insurance, you had hurricane insurance. And you're like, well,
the roof gets ripped off in the hurricane, and then what comes after a hurricane? Rain. And so rain flooded, and you have rain damage because you didn't have a roof. Yeah,
I know we're laughing about it, but these are the issues that people, really have to deal with. We are very fortunate in Nevada to have essentially no natural disasters, right? So we're very, and yet our insurance rates are still skyrocketing. So God help us.
They're all man-made. Yeah, they're all man-made disasters. Yeah.
So awesome. Well, we'll kind of, there's quite a few bills that are pretty technical, so we'll leave the bill talk. Any other last minute?
No, I always say, it's not soup yet. That's been a coin.
I don't know what that is.
For years, it's not soup yet, which means nothing's settled until towards the end. There's going to be, a bill gets introduced. What it means by it's not soup yet. A bill gets introduced and people just lose their minds. Well, most times it's because it's been copied from California or it's just been thrown out there, and then the amendments start coming. The debate comes, and so everybody gets settled in on it. And it either goes away. We heard about 3 or 4 today that just went away.
Yeah.
Or it gets changed and to the point where that's really where they wanted to start. So It's not soup yet. Don't go crazy. Don't go flying off the handle. Yeah. Trust the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. And so now the amendments are going to come, right? The bills are going to leave the Assembly and go to the Senate, and they're going to leave the Senate and come to the Assembly with amendments and changes. And so we're going to review those changes and see, did they get better? Did they get worse? Can we change our position on them? Maybe we supported it, but now we can't. Or maybe we didn't support it and now we can. Or maybe move to neutral, right? And just see what happens, right? We can live with it, right? We can't win every single battle. You guys, right? We know that, right? We only have so many guns, so many bullets.
Sometimes 51% is good enough. Sometimes 49% is good enough.
Yeah.
To get along with that. That's the way this process works.
We've seen our political climate. Everybody wants all or nothing, but we're here to make sure that we're going to do the best thing we can for realtors, for Nevada residents, for landlords, for tenants, for anybody who's thinking about buying real estate in Nevada. Like, we want to make sure that the playing field is fair for everyone. So.
The only person that gets everything they want is the 5-year-old screaming in the middle of the store.
You didn't put your kid in timeout, Keith? You just take him out of the cart, stand
not in the middle, not in the middle
aisle.
Not in the middle of the store. They know when to act out when they're out in public. You can't whip them then.
we take Claire right out, stand her right in the corner, and let her cry for 2 minutes. Yeah, we're paying for that therapy now, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's expensive.
Yeah, I'm talking about you, the parents' therapy. Yeah,
both of ours. Awesome. Well,
hey, man, brother. Good stuff.
if you have any questions or concerns about what's happening in the legislature, please make sure to reach out to me, azim@jessagroup.com. And also read The Advocate. It's a weekly newsletter that gets put out by our government affairs director, Jamie Rodriguez, up in I was going to say Carson City, but she's in Reno. But she is in Carson a lot right now, watching hearings and stuff. And that'll give you some insight into some of the bills specifically, and who the major investors are. I'm not allowed to talk about too much because this is a non-solicitable podcast. We cannot solicit you for RPAC, but if you have questions about it, certainly call me. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you next week. And if you guys see Chris, let him know he's supposed to be on a podcast every week. Have a good day. Thank you very much. Thanks, Keith, for joining me.